Okay, in this video, we're talking about mastering the single leg swing drill. This is a particular swing drill that we can use on the range, at home, at simulator, whatever it might be, that does a lot of things for us. The design of this video is to work on all of the things, the different joints, the mobility, stability, motor control that we need to be really good at performing the swing drill in the first place. And then we can get the most out of that swing drill when we're using it again, for practice or working on weight shift or rotation. So first and foremost, the single leg swing drill is really good at doing a couple things. One is it helps us really focus on improving our weight shift in the golf swing. Essentially, when we're taking single leg swings, we have to be completely shifted onto this one side, right? So if we're doing lead side, then we're taking swings, working through a backswing and a downswing where our weight is shifted left. We can do the same thing on this trail side leg. When we're doing swings like this, all of our weight is shifted over towards the right. So we get to know what it feels like to be shifted into one side through the swing. If we're having issues getting to the right or to the left, especially getting the left back as we initiate the downswing, it's a fantastic drill to do on the left side because you're getting comfortable at taking swings with your weight already shifted to the left. What we also get from this drill is that we force ourselves to use a full range of motion through these joints, right? So if we've had to work through a hip internal rotation, or tibial internal external rotation, or even the ability to pronate the foot or supinate the foot like we do here. If we do single leg drills, we are forcing this hip and pelvis to do all of this work. We're forcing the foot to pronate here. We're forcing the foot and this lower extremity to go pelvis on hip internal rotation, this foot to supinate, right? All these things, pelvis on hip, things like that, they have to happen because we don't have something to bail us out, right? We can't keep weight back here and just bail out this side and get no motion or relative motion into any of these joints through here. So what we're doing in this video is walking through how do we improve the hip mobility here? How do we make sure you have a hip that can actually turn pelvis on hip, that has good stability there around the knee and can pronate and supinate the foot without the need to compensate and cheat because we don't have the joint ability to do it. We'll do some drills that help improve all of these things, work through mobility, stability, incorporating it through motor control and even power creation. And then we're going to finish with, of course, the single leg swing drill. So it's a great way to go about incorporating the different components of the body, where you might be missing mobility, where pain might be holding you back, and how we can work through that into the framework of a swing drill. Because sometimes we're getting drills that the body can't do. Right? If we're trying to improve our ability to shell the club and we're keeping the club cover here through impact, well, if we don't have the shoulder external rotation to do that and we're stuck here, then doing a drill like this is just going to force us to compensate and use other joints incorrectly to, again, keep that elbow tucked into our rib cage there. It's not actually putting us in positions we want to. So with that idea in mind, how can we create a body that's perfected, that has all the pieces that it needs to create and do a really good job with the single leg swing drill? And then when can we incorporate that single leg drill? Okay, with that, let's take a look at the single leg swing drill so you understand what the drill looks like and the different pieces to it. Okay, so this is a swing drill that's going to help us focus on translating hip mobility and stability and strength from the clinic floor, the gym floor, and onto the actual golf course itself. So again, we're going to focus on the lead side hip here. It's also going to be great to drill for any early extension or sliding that's going on in the golf swing. So all we're doing in this drill, we're taking normal, maybe chip shots or whatever. You can go up to maybe 9 iron, 8 iron if you want, take some decent cuts at it. But what we're doing here is we are taking our back foot and we're just going to post it up behind us. Okay, so here for just a little bit of support. Otherwise, what we're doing is we're taking normal swings through here, normal setup posture, everything else is normal. We're taking swings and it's going to force us, especially if you come through, I'm taking some kind of half swings here. As we come through, it's going to force us to stay stable and strong on this lead side hip so that we have to rotate through that hip. We can't break at the knee. If we did, we'd totally lose our balance. So instead, we're forced to have to come through, use all that hip mobility that we created and stability to get through and rotate through that swing. So we're going to really emphasize this lead side hip and its ability to be mobile, right? So we have full access to range of motion. Now we're saying, hey, let's actually use it in the golf swing. We did a good job of cleaning it up at the clinic. What we need to be able to do now is feel what that's like to actually use that hip. We did a good job of creating sensation of you doing that. You're in the clinic and in the gym. We just need to translate that onto the golf course. What does that feel like in the actual swing when you're actually holding a club? This is a great drill for starting to feel that a little bit. Try a couple cuts like this at the beginning of your range sessions and give it a go. So how do we go about mastering the single leg swing drill? Well, first thing we need to look at is mobility. Where do we need great mobility for this drill? It's going to be pelvis and below, especially. That would really help to have some upper T-spine rotation abilities as well, and not to be restricted there. But we're going to focus belt and below. So what we need especially is this lead side leg internal rotation. So a pelvis on femur internal rotation environment. When we do it on trail leg, we'll certainly need it here as well, right? But this is going to be into a coil. On this side, it's going to be into an aggressive downswing through here. We really need to be able to get this pelvis over top of that hip. We also need tibial internal and external rotation, and we need the ability for the foot to pronate, or that arch to drop, especially as we open up here, and then supinate as we come back together for that arch to rise. If it can do that, then we're not forced to what we'd call like invert the whole foot, where it just tilts onto our side. You might see a lot of people get here into the downswing. This might happen eventually, but we don't want it to happen before impact, right? So we want this to be still grounded, creating force through the ground. And then eventually, you'll see even the best players in the world might start to let that foot kind of invert a little bit, right? As they take tension out of the system a little bit. But we need to be able to pronate so that we can get here without that foot coming up into inversion. Okay? So these are some things that we need for mobility. Check out the next couple of drills here to help build mobility into these joints that we had just mentioned.
Okay, this is the adductor pullback exercise. We're going to usually perform this exercise only on one side. Just follow your programming to determine which side that we want to do that on. So in this case, if I'm laying on my left side, I'll be working the right side adductor. That's the kind of the target hip in this case. Our positioning is going to be 90 degrees at the hips. We're going to stack the shoulder in line with the hip here, and we want to make sure that we don't have any extension of this low back like that. We want a good rib tuck without our upper sternum crunching like that. So just a good rib tuck down, keeping our hip in line with our shoulder and our hips on top of each other. I have a little foam yoga block here. You don't need this, but typically if we have our feet raised a couple inches off the ground, that helps. And then a full foot contact with both feet on the wall. So those are key points. We have our hip in line with our shoulder. Hips are stacked. Shoulders are stacked on top of each other. My head and neck are relaxed. I can use a pillow here if you'd like to. And then same thing, we have a full foot contact, both feet into the wall. I feel both big toes in the wall. I feel both heels into the wall. And I feel both inner arches of my foot in the wall. Now from here, I have a ball that I'm going to use to place between my knees. You can use a towel if you need to. You don't need to use anything at all if you don't have anything. But from here, I'm just going to practice moving my hip forward and then backward, stopping before my low back really gets involved, and again, keeping my full foot contact the entire time. From here, this is where the drill starts. What we're going to do is we're going to exhale through the mouth like we're fogging a mirror. Exhale all the way out. Feel those ribs start to tuck and internally rotate through there. Hold that tension in your obliques. Inhale through the nose. That's going to be our breathing throughout this drill. So slow breaths in through the nose, long breaths long breaths out through the mouth, keeping our full foot contact and our hip and shoulder positioning. From here, we're going to pull our top hip back as far as we can before we start to get upper body involvement. Then from there, we're going to apply pressure directly down into that ball, maybe a 3 or a 4 out of 10 pressure there. You should feel your groin on this top side working hard. Otherwise, we want the rest of the body to be relatively relaxed. Okay. Another key point here is we want to keep our top side hip pulled down towards this wall where our feet are. So again, this is part of our setup positioning, is we have full foot contact, our hips are in line, our shoulders are stacked, but we also want to pull, or at least think about pulling that top hip down towards the wall there. Okay. That should create a little bit of space and oblique action here on this bottom side. So we're creating some space there, thinking about pulling that hip down, and then we can pull that hip down, pull this hip in, keep that in tension as we push down. I'm pushing down into the wall. So the whole time I'm pushing down, I'm pushing in, and I'm thinking about pushing this hip down towards the wall. From here, we do our breathing cycles. One breath is one rep. So nice and slow, keeping those ribs tucked. Go ahead, give it a shot.
Okay, for this thoracic rotation drill, we're actually getting a lot to happen here. So in this position, we have our left foot forward and our right foot back. Our hips are at 90 degrees in either direction, and our knees are at 90 degrees. So if you can mimic this 90-90 kind of shin box position, is what it's called, then that's a great starting point. What we're getting here is external rotation of that left hip internal rotation of that right hip. Now, this might be a little bit difficult for some of you to get into this position. If so, we can just work on, first of all, getting into this position. The more we can improve that, then the better our golf swing, right? Because we need to get into the backswing, left side external rotation, right side internal rotation. That's exactly the position we're in here, right? So we're getting that reciprocal motion where one side is doing one thing and the other side is doing the opposite. Now, where we can upgrade this and turn it into a thoracic rotation drill is we hold this ball. If we don't have a medicine ball, then just think about kind of giving yourself a big hug and creating tension in that way. And we're going to rotate towards that backside leg. So in this case, we are rotating towards that backside leg, and we're just kind of hanging out in this position. Now, what we need to do next is just own this position. So you should imagine yourself, we're going to breathe in through the nose, nice and slow. Breathe out through the mouth. Let the air kind of fall out of your mouth. Again, we're going to take a long time on these inhales and exhales. Own this position here where we're rotated towards our right side, and feel the tension start to build in your abs as you're pushing out every last bit of breath there, right? That's really important. Feel your abs start to turn on a little bit. Maintain that tension, 2 or 3 out of 10, and then breathe back in through the nose, maintaining that tension. What that does is that forces our ribs to internally rotate and kind of close down on each other. And then as we inhale, but maintain all that tension that we've built with the abs that are actually pulling those ribs in those positions, is that we keep those ribs down, and then we inhale, and we're teaching the diaphragm, we're teaching that thoracic spine, we're teaching those hips how to exist in this position as we breathe in and out, right? So that helps with the brain. It also helps with the tissue that are controlling these joints to start to get used to and actually adapt to these positions here, okay? So we start chest facing forward, we rotate towards that backside leg, and then from there, we breathe, breath in through the nose, breath out through the mouth, maintain that tension, another breath in through the nose, and then we can rotate back facing forward, and then we can rep that out. Just repeat that 4 to 5 times, kind of owning that rotation. Again, trying to get a little bit more rotation each time, but also trying to make sure we're standing up as tall as we can and standing tall as we do it, right? So a great drill to get everything working together. We are in a perfect backswing position here, though it doesn't look like it. We have our left hip in external rotation, our right hip is absorbing that external rotation, creating internal rotation on the right side, and then we are rotating our thoracic spine to the right. Again, try this in both directions. It's important to try to maintain some of that symmetry, especially in a sport like golf where we tend to be so asymmetric. That leads to that pain, that discomfort, that overuse, right? So as a pain prevention, kind of prehab, make sure to do it on both sides, and then the same thing on the rehab side, we do it on both sides, but just make sure that we are getting it, and especially paying attention as we rotate towards our right with our left foot forward and our right foot back.
All right, now that we're well on our way to creating mobility at these key joints for this drill, let's build some strength in these joints too. We need to be able to control our motion through these joints. So we can't just improve the ability for one joint to move passively through range of motion. We also need to make sure that we can do it under high speeds, right? So we need to be strong around these joints as well. Otherwise, the brain and the body is going to compensate regardless. Even if you have the mobility there, it's not going to let you drive force into these joints if we're not strong enough to control it. So try the next couple of drills, which is going to help improve strength through these key joints that we had just mentioned. And then we'll be able to translate that eventually into some power and force creation as well. Okay, this is our B stand split squat with torso rotation. So we can use a PVC pipe for a little bit of feedback on this. What we're going to do is have our one foot flat on the wall behind us. You want to step out pretty far. Do a little test split squat here. We're keeping our torso straight up. You should be going up and down like an elevator. So long as we have that comfortable, we have the right foot placement. From here, we're going to hold a PVC pipe in front of us. I hold it with one side a little bit longer than the other because I'm going to be rotating towards this side, and I could hit it up against the wall, so I'll just move it down. So we rotate towards the side where the foot is forward. From here, we're just doing a normal split squat, and then as we come up, we're going to rotate in towards that side. You're going to feel this side glute, groin, and quad light up, especially the glute. So again, we're starting the split squat. As we stand up, we rotate towards that inside edge. We're keeping the pelvis here relatively neutral facing forward as we rotate our trunk on top of it. Again, this helps work on that separation where we're able to rotate one relative to the other. Very important for that kinematic sequence, creating that X factor and stretch shortening cycle to create power and sequencing in the golf swing. So we can do this on both sides. Again, we're going to strengthen and increase hip mobility. We're going to get a little bit of adductor or groin work on the front side leg, and then we're going to work on our ability to create separation between the torso and the pelvis. Give it a shot.
All right, for our kickstand hinge, this is a very important exercise for us. What we're going to do is we're focusing on opening up and expanding the posterior hip and glute here. It's fantastic. We're starting to create some motion, some space in the back of this hip. Really important for things like low back pain, pelvis pain, knee pain, foot pain, anything up and down the chain that's connected to that posterior hip and hip capsule. So for this, we're going to be standing in a hinge position here like this. One foot is kind of kickstand back. Most of our weight is on this front foot here, say 90 to 95% of our weight. Now, from here, I want you to think about getting as long as you can from your tailbone to the top of your head through here like this. The key here is to maintain that length without going into this hyperextension through here, but we also don't want to slouch. So try to find that spot right in the middle and then think about getting tall, right? So not extending, but just as tall as you can from here to here and maintaining that as we hinge. So I'm going to use my left hand here as a kind of a reference that I'm pushing my hip back and then I'm feeling a stretch on the right glute. So if I do that with my left leg here, pushing this hip back, feeling this expand as we come straight down. Again, staying as long and tall as you can as you do that, and then coming back up. Now, a really important part of this is that we have a slight bend in our forward knee. So we want it almost over our toes, maybe somewhere between our ankle and our toes. And again, staying as tall as you can here, staying out of extension. Thinking about my hips go backwards as my head goes forward. So my hips are going backwards and almost up is a good way to think of it. That your tailbone or your sits bones here go up as your head goes forward. And we're feeling a big stretch through the glute inside of the hip here. And then we use that stretch to slowly come out of that hinge. Again, our knee stays bent as we do that. And you want to feel that outside of the hip and that posterior hip working hard to create that motion for us. All right, so go ahead and give that a shot.
Thing we should look at before having you do the drill itself is start to build power and speed into these joints that we had just worked on. We have the mobility, we have the strength through these joints. Now, can we create force quickly through these joints as well without, again, losing timing, sequencing, and creating compensation? So try these next couple drills to help drive power and force into these joints without being at the range and having to waste time out there just trying to figure out how to create force through these joints. We can focus mostly on ball striking out there. And in the gym or at home, we can work on developing power and speed through these joints that we can translate into that drill. Okay, this is the lateral kettlebell swing or side kettlebell swing. What we're doing here is trying to emphasize one hip over the other, and we're going to make it so it's impossible not to get into this hip and really emphasize what would be internal rotation of getting this pelvis turning on top of this femur, and then using that big stretch we get in the side of the hip as a sensation to know what it feels like to actually use this hip to help gain mobility of internal rotation on this hip, and then how to use it, that internal mobility, under a loaded and an explosive scenario. Okay, so what we're going to do here is stagger our stance so that the hip we're focusing on is about half a foot width in front. So here my right foot would be about half a foot width in front of my left. From here, this back foot, whatever's most comfortable for you, we can start a little bit wider, or narrower would be a little bit more difficult. Find whatever's comfortable. We're going to try to keep this foot in the ground. It's okay if it comes up a little bit. From here, we're going to get in just a little bit of a hinged position. So we're already hinging back into this hip a little bit. We have a slight knee bend. And then here we have to play around and see what feels best. Here's the motion. To get activation, a big stretch, and a big feel of us using that hip, the fit on the outside and the front of the hip, is how do we get that to feel it the most? So sometimes we'll have to go very little knee bend and push the hips back every time we come through and really focus on keeping a similar knee angle the whole time. And then other times when we get more explosive, where we get a little bit better at feeling that hip, we can get a little bit more knee drive. Okay, so give that a shot. Try it on both sides. Okay, this is our medicine ball shovel pass. Few key things with this exercise and drill is, first of all, the motion is going to be from here and through. What I want you to think about when we're doing this is not to let your hips just follow through weakly like that, but instead I want you to think about avoiding something like an early extension where these hips shoot forward. And instead I want you to think this lead side hip, in this case my left hip,
want you to think of it as shooting back as we come through, so that this hip is behind my lead heel, right? So instead of coming through like this, I want you to think of driving this hip back. You can almost see as if my foot would come and slide back, but the friction is going to keep it there. So instead, my hip comes back like that as we shoot and explosively throw that ball through. Again, avoiding this weak hip moving forward, but driving through, getting that hip back and keeping that hip back. Give it a shot. Okay, the single leg swing drill. It's a great drill to incorporate on the range. Take a few swings, left leg, right leg, as you're warming up for a round or just for a practice session. And we've let the single leg swing drill be the catalyst to address any restrictions, mobility, strength, or motor control issues that we have as a golfer, to improve us, to make us most capable for this drill, which is only going to work to improve our golf game. So we've let the single leg swing drill be the scaffolding or the catalyst for inspiring us to improve our mobility and strength and motor control through certain joints. And this way we can get the most out of that drill. We can also get the most out of our golf swing regardless. So go ahead, try some of these drills that you've done before. Go through the mobility, strength, motor control, come back to it again, time and time again. It's a great lower half kind of sequencing of mobility and strength and power drills that you can do. If you enjoyed it, give the video a like, share it with some friends, and leave a comment if there's something you want to learn a little bit more about. Be happy to do that. All you got to do is just let me know. Thank you.